right, welcome to the Newsfloor, the news show about all things dance, electronic, and nightlife. My name is Valerie Lee, and we are going to be meeting up here every single week right on the Lost Resort Twitch channel. Thank you for joining me again. This is week number 2, believe it or not. We're still going. And we're going to be coming here every single week for all of the top news and conversations about what's going on in the world of dance music. We're going to be rounding up and listening to the top tracks of the week, some really good ones coming up if you stay tuned. And then we're also, of course, getting the insider scoop from some of your favorite artists, people, and folks from around the rave. So stay tuned. All right, there is a lot going on in the world of news and dance music this week. Let's start with the light stuff. So the first one that caught my eye this week is that Richie Houghton has soundtracked the new Prada Spring and Summer 2021 women's wear show. But this time not as Richie Houghton, but of course his moniker Plastic Man, which it's been a long time since we've heard from Plastic Man, so this is super exciting news. I personally love it when electronic music gets to, coincide with fashion. It happens more often than you'd think. A lot of high fashion designers bring in artists like Richie to soundtrack. I know the Martinez brothers have done it before. Jamie XX has done it. And also even integrated with certain iconic labels. I think it was like R&S has been featured in some high fashion designer collections before. So for 2021, Prada brought in Plastic Man for a 12-minute track, which is called Synthetic, spelled Sinthetic, clever. And it arrived alongside a 20-minute ambient version. So as you can imagine, it's a pretty atmospheric, a little bit of an eerie track. If you check out the clip that we have here, you can see that the fashion show kind of has this dystopian vibe. There's like cameras, like almost like set up like security camera style in the room, and as the models are walking around featuring the new collection. So it kind of makes sense that Plastic Man is on board for this. It debuted at Milan Fashion Week, and it marks Plastic Man's first original since 2014, which is really exciting because I think it was back in 2018 when we heard from Richie that he said a new LP from Plastic Man was on the way. So it's been a few years since then, but maybe this is a good sign that there's new music to come. Next up, it's a bit of a step away from the world of high fashion and techno and ambient music. Superstar actor Vin Diesel has released a pop tropical house song on Kygo's label. Another one of those sentences that I never thought I would say, but 2020 has delivered in many ways that we didn't expect it would. As you can imagine, it's a bit unexpected. Although, to be honest, I was thinking about this and I was like, I don't really know if somebody asked me what I thought a Vin Diesel track would sound like. I don't even know if I would have an answer, honestly. I'm not sure I would have imagined him singing on it, but he is singing on it, believe it or not. It premiered on the Kelly Clarkson show, another weird addition to this story. And Vin Diesel went on to say that I am blessed that in a year I would be normally on a movie set. I've had another creative outlet, another way to show you and share with you my heart. To that end, one of the people that first believed in me was Kygo, so I am now going to debut the very first song on his label, Feels Like I Do. It was produced by P.D. Martin, and like I said, Vin Diesel is singing on the vocals, so, it is what it is, 2020. We welcome all sorts of exploration, so why not? Next up in the news, if you've been living under a rock, you might have missed that Pioneer DJ announced a new CDJ, the CDJ 3000. This is always really exciting news because, of course, Pioneer produces the kind of industry standard as far as CDJs go. It's the first major upgrade since 2011. Here's some of the main additions. I'll read them out for you. There's a new 9-inch touchscreen, super exciting, 8 colored cue buttons that have been moved to underneath the screen, dedicated beat jump, and 4 and 8 bar loops, a new aluminum faceplate, keysync functionality, and a redesigned MPU inside the player. So as you can imagine, the changes are pretty subtle because they want to retain that familiarity. Eventually when DJs are going back into the clubs, they want a DJ to still be walking up to, the new CDJ 3000, even if they've never used it, to be able to know how to use the basic functions. But of course, there's like those small upgrades like the touchscreen, the better build with the aluminum faceplate. I was reading some reviews. They were saying it feels a lot more higher quality because of that instead of a plastic faceplate. And of course, the upgraded screen. Who doesn't love touchscreen? Kind of feels a little, late actually for them to be introducing touchscreen, so that's good. However, one of the big cons is that there's still no support for stream or cloud DJing from Beatport Link or SoundCloud or even Pioneer's own Rekordbox Cloud. I feel like a lot of people were kind of expecting and hoping this to be an upgrade that was added. Didn't happen this time, so kind of wait and see. And of course, it's a high price tag. It's around $2,300, so it's not really meant for home setups. It is more for probably the clubs that will be buying them, or of course, if you're a well-known / touring DJ and you can afford to bring one of these into your homes. But otherwise, we'll be waiting to see what the reviews are for the CDJ 3000. All right, another piece of news is DJ Rebecca has launched an anti-sexual harassment campaign called #ForTheMusic. Again, if you've somehow been hiding under a rock and have missed all the multiple sexual assault and harassment allegations that have come to light recently, I would even say over the past few years, not even just a few months, but of course, the most recent one was involving Eric Murillo. We talked about that last week. But Rebecca, in response to those, she decided to put together a change.org campaign that has started with an open letter pledging to protect artists, staff, and party goers from harassment and guarantee safe working spaces. It seems a little crazy that something like this needs to be, put into writing or even put out there for people to sign and agree to. But as it's kind of been proven time and time again, these kind of incidents are still happening. And there's a lot of power in people coming together and saying that they're not going to let people get away with it anymore. They're not going to let people slide, even if they have fame or if they're well known. So the change.org letter clarifies a couple points. So number one, it ensures artists, employees, and audiences are protected against sexual harassment. Number two, it guarantees that employees of the industry will have a safe working space. Number three, demands artists and performers to end the culture of silence, be allies, and to speak out when they witness sexual harassment happening. And number four, holds clubs accountable for ensuring a safe space for performers, employees, and audiences that is free from sexual harassment. So it's kind of a blanket, open letter. It's asking for all major parties across the music industry to be responsible and to work together to prevent these kind of incidents from happening again. And she talked about it on her social media. The campaign was inspired by her wanting to mentor women and members of the LGBTQ community, but realizing that she would be welcoming these kind of new talents and new faces into a world that doesn't quite seem safe yet for them, which I think is a mature decision and realization to make. It's one thing to say you want to spend your time mentoring and shining a light on younger and new talent, but it's another to actually step back and actually take a look at the industry that you're working in entirely and say there needs to be something that changes. So she's tagged several high-profile peers like Nina Kravitz, The Blessed Madonna, Midland, Honey Dijon. It's received a lot of support already. There's over 3,000 signatures at the time that I checked it out, and you can find the link on Rebecca's Instagram page to sign it yourself. And we're going to end on a positive note, I think. Oakland here in California has announced a $1.5 million grant for local artists and small arts nonprofits. The city of Oakland has launched a new initiative titled CARES Fund for Artists and Art Nonprofits, otherwise known as the CARES Art Fund, in response to the financial impact of COVID-19. This is a conversation that's come up several times in different iterations of organizations coming together to ask for grants or support for whether it be venues or artists themselves. Obviously, a lot of people related to the music industry are going through some really hard times right now financially. There's not really an end in sight right now, at least probably another 6 months until things are open at all, if that. So the CARES Art Fund would provide $1.5 million in grants of up to $3,000 for individual artists and grants of up to $20,000 for small arts nonprofits. Artists must be full-time residents in Oakland and make their primary income as freelancers or employees of any of the art sectors, and that includes literary, visual, teaching artists, or musicians. So if you're in the Oakland area, you can find out more info. The applications actually close on Friday, October 9th, so you have a couple more days. And you will be notified at the end of October. The grant payments would arrive mid-November, so get that money if you need it. If you are an Oakland resident, this is important. You can find out more info at cciarts.org/Oakland_cares_fund. And that's your news for the week. We have now arrived at the Hub, which is the segment of the show where I get to play you some of the top tracks of the week and also a Newsfloor pick, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Some bad news, not really bad news, but the track that is Beatport's number 1 is actually the same track that of Pete Tong's essential new tune this week, and it is called Best of Me by Art Bat and Sailor and I. It's out on Metaphysical. So we know Ukrainian duo Artur and Batish, they're known as Art Bat. They first started appearing a couple years ago on Solomon's Dynamic label, started making a lot of noise, and of course now they've teamed up with Swedish vocalist Sailor and I for this melodic tune called Best of Me. So take a listen right now. So next up for our EP of the week is Rave on Time from Charlotte DeWitt, who, unlike I think many of us, she has been nonstop this year, despite all the quarantine, despite all the time spent at home. This is actually going to be her third EP of 2020. It's called Rave on Time, and it follows her 2 early releases this year, Return to Nowhere and Vision. Rave on Time, as you can kind of assume, knowing Charlotte DeWitt's style, it's an explosive, acidic, and ferocious collection of tracks. And it proves that she is totally ready to go, locked and loaded for whenever she's finally ready to take us back out on the dance floor again, which I'm really excited about. The EP is out now on KNTXT, which is her own imprint, and here's a play of it right now. Okay, last but not least, I am really excited to share with you this week's Newsfloor choice of The Hub. It's got such an amazing backstory, this track. So the original is called Latex Love. It's from a band called Drance, which was made up of 3 people who were essential members of the late 80s and 90s club scene in Los Angeles, specifically in Silver Lake at a Sunday night party called Club Fuck that took place at Bosco's. So the party, it was kind of this place where people could get together, no judgment. They said that it was a safe gathering space for people who were into BDSM, who were tattooed, peers, gender fluid, whatever it might be. I think in modern times we might call it like a queer club, but it was really iconic for the time and the area. And it really helped people, take control of their bodies and feel free and safe. So Latex Love has actually been remastered for its very first release on vinyl now, and that's nearly 30 years later, which is really cool. The instrumental version was actually transferred from the original DAT tape that the band would use for their live performances, and we have Chris Cruz's mix from Spotlight. So we also got some words from him, so hear it straight from him right now.
Hi, it's Chris Cruz from Spotlight. We just launched Spotlight Records this week. It's an extension of the Spotlight queer warehouse raves that we do in Los Angeles. And the first release is from a band called Drance. They were active in Silver Lake's club fuck scene in the late 80s and early 90s. They're an industrial dance band, and they were getting really big, but unfortunately they died of AIDS before they could really pop off. For this first release, we remastered Latex Love for its first ever release on vinyl. Chris Baja did a dub, which is kind of more like a cover, and then I did a remix. And all proceeds from the record sales go towards AIDS Project Los Angeles at the request of the band members' families. And the music still really, even though it's from the 90s, I think it still really hits today. The lyrics deal with disgust towards a lot of modern culture, an uneasiness towards disease, and a real raw power and rage to stay alive and really live on your own terms. So you can pick up the record at Sound Metaphors in Berlin or pre-order at your local record store. You can follow Spotlight-LA on SoundCloud. And yeah, thanks for choosing this as track of the week.
This week on the circuit, I caught up with Sean Horton over at Dice FM. If you're not familiar with Dice, you really should get familiar now. They've really stepped up not only in the past few years, but most recently during quarantine as the hub of all things streaming. They've got some really awesome shows over there, but not only music shows, they've also got some really cool programming that has to do with book readings and poetry and film. So whatever you might be interested in, Dice for sure has it. We got into a little bit about what types of programming they have over there, so check out our conversation right now. All right. Hi, Sean Horton, and welcome to the Newsfloor. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it is so great to have you here. For those who don't know, Sean is the West Coast music lead for Dice, and I think it might be best coming from you. For the uninitiated, what is Dice and how does it work?
Dice started out in the UK as basically a ticketing platform, music discovery platform, to kind of disrupt what the founders thought was sort of a industry in need of disrupting. They came from a artist management background and were frustrated with a lot of the things that most people are frustrated with: ticketing, high fees, secondary markets, lack of transparency, everything that people have probably cited. So they set out to create a new platform that was fan focused, that was totally mobile enabled, and allowed for a lot more flexibility in terms of being able to communicate with fans. Music discovery is paramount. So, the idea is that you go onto Dice in any city that you're in, and you open it up like you would have, years ago with a blog to see what's going on. And it has, you can synchronize your music library. So it actually recommends shows that are relevant to you and your musical tastes. So if you scan your Spotify or Apple Music library, you'll see things that are relevant to you, which is great. And obviously, as we've pivoted into streaming, it's really important because there's all these different streams happening and no one knows where to find them. And it seems as though there's really a lack of curation. So the same things we were doing with the event side, we're now, obviously pivoting towards with streaming.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I've noticed personally that Dice has kind of been the leader in not only keeping track of everything, but really being an organized kind of hub for people who are interested in music and the live streaming universe, which I guess we're all kind of stuck in that universe right now.
Yeah.
But I do know that, of course, Dice has been doing much more than just music-focused streams. So what other types of programming do you guys have on there?
Well, we have a history. Our arts and culture department has a long history of doing things from like live podcasts to book readings to comedy. We were doing a lot of things during the initial sort of Black Lives Matter movement after Ferguson and after George Floyd. So we were doing everything from like educational programming to films to documentaries to live talks. We have an upcoming book reading with Lily Reinhart, and we're doing more things kind of along that line. I think that skew outside of music. Music's certainly been our bread and butter, but I think what we're seeing, especially during the pandemic, is people want to interact and listen and learn and do things outside of just seeing live music events, which I think in some cases actually makes people even long for it more. So I think that human interactivity is really crucial and something that we're seeing a lot more of with the Dice programming.
That's amazing. So you can go to Dice and kind of see some music, but then also if you're interested in books, film, whatever it might be, there's some other stuff to check out as well.
Correct.
I feel like your team probably are the ones who are, at the frontier of this whole, live streaming shift as the music industry specifically is kind of figuring it out as we go. I'm curious to know what you and your team are kind of observing and noticing as some of the most important or most notable things about the live streaming kind of landscape.
There's a lot. It's a new territory, obviously, and everyone's kind of learning it as they go along. And I actually started a resource document back in March, just outlining all of the different platforms, licensing, things to look out for, with the broadcast. A lot of the pay-per-view shows that we're seeing are actually pre-recorded, but then being broadcast as a live event. And I think it's really important to know that distinction between a live stream and a live broadcast. I think a lot of people are confused about that. So there's been a lot of education On our side, we have a really great production team in terms of these sort of pitfalls that you can come up against with how to broadcast. And if it's not something that you're familiar with doing yourself, there's production teams out there that we can hire out to do it for you. But that idea of having it be a live broadcast so that people, when they tune into it, it says live and there's no way for them to fast forward or rewind. Um, Most of what we're doing in the pay-per-view space right now is live broadcasted, but previously recorded. Um, and that being said, if it's previously recorded, you can record it anywhere you want. It's not like you need to be in a specific venue with, high-speed internet or anything like that. So why not be creative with it? Some of the most successful events that we've had so far, like Laura Marling, Nick Cave, which were, sort of the two best case studies that we had up to that point, and really outperformed what we were expecting. They both were successful because they chose, I think, interesting venues. So visually speaking, looked and sounded incredible. They also promoted it like it was an actual concert. So there was a lot of lead up. There was a press release. They actually did trailer videos in advance of the show to kind of help promote it.
Right.
And it was compelling content, and there was a narrative behind it. And in Laura's case, it was a new album. In Nick's case, it was a solo piano performance from a unique venue, and he was performing material that he's never performed before. So I think just doing a stream isn't good enough. You really need to think about the narrative. You need to think about the venue. You need to think about the audio visual elements of it and what it's going to look and sound like for fans. And you need to promote it well in advance of the show. We recommend 3 to 4 weeks so that you can get traditional media press coverage for the event. Both in the case of Laura and Nick, they had over 100 individual media pieces written about it, whether it was like a calendar listing or an actual editorial piece. So they really did a good job, I think, working with us, working with the publicist, working with the producer to make sure that it was treated like a traditional concert. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people are doing. I mean, early on, people were just performing from their bedroom, through Instagram. And obviously that's not something that I would personally pay for. But I would pay to watch, a wrestling match or a football game or sports. So like thinking about it in terms of like live sports, I think is one way in which it sort of allows people to understand, live sports is something that people pay to watch all the time. Why is live music something that really hasn't taken off? And I think it's just the level of quality, the production, and the way it's promoted. The marketing angle is huge. And everything that we've done that was successful, they followed those same laws and sort of best practices.
Yeah, I mean, I think you give some really valuable advice there. And I think that that's something even I've noticed from the outside as an observer, over the past few months. I think artists, we were all coming into quarantine in this era with a bit of confusion, right? People were kind of like, oh, we just want to do something to pass the time. And then it turned into, oh, we got to figure out how to make money and make it special. And like you said, build a narrative and really put thought and creativity into it. So I think we're starting to see more and more of those really special streams and special events, even not even just a stream, starting to pop up. Well, thank you so much, Sean. If you are interested in listening about something that you want to check out, go to Dice and go buy those tickets. Thank you again, Sean, for joining us here on the Newsfloor.
Thank you, Valerie. I appreciate it.
Last but certainly not least for the catch-up this week, I had the pleasure of tuning in with Lottie Moore and Maddie Salvage, who together are Sisters of Sound, and I caught them at a really exciting time. Their compilation is on its way. They just released a new single, which you're going to get the very first play of, actually, if you stay tuned right after the interview. It's going to be Lacey's track Milan, the A-side to their second single release alongside Violet's Search and Find. So stay tuned. We're going to get into all of that right now. All right, I am welcoming Lottie Moore and Maddie Salvage here to the Newsfloor for a quick and happy catch-up. I'm catching you guys on such an exciting day. But before I get into that, I'd like to introduce you guys, a power couple, if I may say so myself.
Aww, we try.
Lottie Moore is the Events and Special Projects Manager over at Dub Lab. Of course, that's a historic radio station over here in LA for those who are uninitiated and might not know. And of course, she's also a renowned DJ and stalwart, if I may say so myself, of the LA scene. And then, of course, we have Maddie Salvage, who is the VP A&R of North America for Ninja Tune, an incredible label we know and love, and of course, an accomplished DJ herself. But I think the world might know you guys together as, you know, the masterminds behind Sisters of Sound. And I'm always so curious when I, you know, meet people who kind of come into these journeys together. Just take us to the beginning if you can. You know, how did you two meet? And at what point did you guys decide like it was time to do something official together?
Yeah, Maddie and I, we've had a long blossoming friendship. We actually met for a mutual friend of ours, Little Boots, who
we love Little Boots.
Yeah, shout out to her. And we both kind of started DJing together, and we also did a kind of little event series last year, which was really successful. We worked with She Said So, and we worked with Toki Monster record label, Young Art, and it was really great success. We held them at Virgil Normal, and it was kind of towards the end of last year that Maddie and I decided we should do something kind of more challenging for us. We both within our roles are surrounded by incredibly talented artists, and I think that you know, our introduction to LA has been very, very fruitful in that sense. And so we started working on a compilation. Both of us kind of sat down, put our heads together at the end of last year. And actually, it was around about February time that we had this incredible compilation. And we were kind of like, oh my God, what should we do with this? This is like surpassed both of our like expectations. And so we actually, you know, decided to send it out to a few labels, and K7 came back and were really interested in becoming our distribution arm. So it kind of took us by surprise. But I think that we both have, you know, a lot of experience in the music industry, and it felt like the natural progression for us to start a label. Yeah, this is kind of where we are right now.
I love that. I think it's, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, just to add to that, you know, we both kind of came like from Europe to LA at the same time, and I think we were very inspired by all of the world talent really who were sort of prevailing in the Los Angeles underground scene, and we were quite inspired by that. So it just felt like a natural step. I think also both of us are very passionate about championing female talent, female non-binary talent in the industry. Both of us are from, you know, indie electronic backgrounds, so it just felt like a natural fit to take, as Lottie said, the next step into sort of more of a curatorial role.
Yeah, I was going to say the journey itself sounds so authentic, and just like you two individuals match step in step, so it just makes sense to come together and celebrate this wonderful collection of sound. So tell me about the compilation. I know that it's an exciting day today. We're actually receiving a new single. So tell me more about all of that.
Yeah, so SOS Music Volume 1, it's a 14-track compilation, essentially showcasing dance music from some of the best, you know, new producers working at the moment that we love, that happen to be all female and non-binary. So we have tracks on there from Roxy Moore, from Violet, from Nightwave, Lara Sarkissian, Umfang, Lucy, Minimal Violence. It's a real mixed bag. We love all of the artists in their own ways. Today is a special day. Our second single is coming out. It's a double single featuring tracks. Yes, it's very exciting. From Lucy, who's Bristol raised, London based, amazing electronic producer and DJ herself, and also Violet. So we're really excited about that. We've been overwhelmed by the response to the compilation. We're donating the proceeds to 3 women WOMXAN charities. So the Transgender Law Center, Downtown Women's Shelter based in Los Angeles, and the Women's Refugee Commission. It just felt like a time that we really wanted to just, you know, continue championing diversity, particularly in LA, when there are so many, you know, incredible artists in the underground scene. I think given all that had happened with the pandemic and, these artists losing their livelihood through club DJing, live shows. It just felt like the right time to put this together. It's a really special compilation. Lottie and I have been overwhelmed by, the quality of the tracks and the artists involved. So we're really excited, for this to be our debut release.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, that sounds incredible. And I think the one silver lining I've kind of noticed of, the pandemic and everyone being stuck at home is like, I feel like people are actually really eager and excited to discover new artists or listen to new sounds. So this sounds like a really fantastic place to start. Plus with the charity element, you can't deny that. And kind of related to that, you two both wear many hats in the world of music. And of course, are familiar with how crazy the past few months have been for any type of role. Not
And the
at
bags.
all. Not at all. Just in the experience, I would say. But I'm curious to know, whether it be radio, managing a label, or even as a DJ yourself, how have you guys kind of been navigating the past few months, and maybe if there's any advice that you'd love to give to, other kind of musicians or people in music out there?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like the dub side of things and the radio, online community radio, I think that very quickly we kind of realized that we had to do something new and to pivot. I hate using that word, but it kind of sums it up. We launched a daily podcast with the Onassis Foundation, and that's something that we'd never really done before, like a talk show based program, and also just really kind of trying to bring the communities together through the power of music. I think that that's really important right now. People need an escape. They need to feel like there's something other than the whole mess that's going on out there, and we all know it's a mess. But I think that there are positives, and I think one big piece of advice that someone gave me was that the pandemic is bigger than us, and so if you can't do everything that you wanted to do before, just try and do other things and try and see where you can get to and adapt, and that's kind of how Dub Lab's kind of gone looking at things. Obviously as a DJ, there isn't the live aspect of it, but I think the importance of radio, it comes through even more. People really want to be doing mixes. They really want to be getting involved with as many radio stations, because that is the platform right now for people to show their talents, as well as streaming as well.
Exactly. And I think it's a real time for artists. People still need art now, right, more than ever, as Lottie says. And I think once I work with a lot of diverse up and coming electronic artists, as well as more mainstream artists, and I think it's been a struggle for everybody. And I think for me, it's just about being kind to yourself. You can't do everything, and that's okay. It's all right to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to feel, sort of helpless in some senses. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at, America on fire right now. It's a crazy time. And I think, Lottie and I just really wanted to support where we can, and also just put art into the world. And it's, it's something that we can be doing and that we are passionate about. And it's obviously there are no dance floors right now except for the ones in your front room. And Lottie and I have been trying our hardest to create those for sure. So, I think it's still, the response has been amazing, and people are still wanting to listen to this type of music. And, I think it's been such an intense year for everybody, but it just felt right. It felt like a time we wanted to be championing these artists still, and really, exposing new talent to the world, and just showing, how much amazing art is really coming out of this pandemic. And I think there really is, there's some incredible music out there right now. It's going to be a very interesting time for all types of music the next year, 2 years, and we just want to focus on that and do the best that we can to help support that.
Yeah, totally.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think it's really just comes down to, be kind to yourself, to other people, and just celebrate what we can. We're going to make it through. And as you said, the pandemic is bigger than us, and thankfully we do have music, and we have amazing creative people to celebrate alongside, even though we're far apart right now. But
if people can, they should register to vote. Maddie and I can't vote, but
yes,
but you
absolutely.
should if you can. It's really
that is
important.
Such an important message. Yes, thank you for also adding that piece of advice in as well. So important. Well, I can't wait for the full compilation to arrive. We're going to be keeping an eye out over at Sisters of Sound on all the social pages. thank you both for joining me, and stay safe and happy wherever you are.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for another week here on the Newsfloor. My name is Valerie Lee, and it's been really fun. Again, every single week we're going to be live right here on Twitch on the Lost Resort channel. We're going to be talking all things news, doing interviews, and listening to the best tracks every single week. And you can actually follow us when we're not live at the Newsfloor. We're on Instagram, on Twitter, and definitely, if you can, hit the follow button here, wherever it is on Twitch. Hit subscribe if you can. There's some awesome programming here also on Lost Resort if you're not familiar already. Upcoming this week is Lost Resort with Toki Monster with Nightwave. That's happening tomorrow. Schmoozin' with Soul Clap has DJ Heidi on next Tuesday. So mark your calendars for that. And of course, Rave the Vote, the very last episode is happening not only Friday, but also Saturday. So it's a 2-day event. Some really awesome talent. Toki Monster herself, Tyga Pa, No Such Thing, Cakes Tequila, A-Track, Jubilee, DJ Jazzy Jeff. Quite the variety. And you might catch me doing some interviews on Rave the Vote as well, because I do that sometimes. But anyways, thank you for joining us again for another episode here on the Newsfloor. Valerie Lee, and I will see you next week.